Assalamu alaikum. So, my dear first year students, hope that you are well. I am also fine by the grace of Allah. So, here I am with you to deliver a lecture on the poem I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. You know that this is the lecture number 3 in your course. So, let's start now. So, you know that I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud is a poem written by William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth is a famous poet of Romantic period. He is called William Wordsworth is called the pioneer poet of Romantic movement. So let's start now. So my dear students, after this lesson, inshallah, you will be able to understand the poem very easily, and you will also be able to answer the following questions. So these questions are very much important for your coming exam, for your next exam, National University exam. So number one, the most important question is that Wordsworth's treatment of nature. This question may be in any way. What is the philosophy of nature? Do you find in this poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud? Or how does William Wordsworth treat nature in this poem? In this way, or what is the relationship between man and nature, or the treatment of man and nature through the light of the poem I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. So then the question, Wordsworth as a poet of joy and loneliness through the light of this poem. And another question is just Wordsworth's feeling after seeing the daffodils. The question may be, what was Wordsworth's feeling after seeing the daffodil flowers in this poem. And then another question, how does the poet apply his theory of poetry in this poem? You know that William Wordsworth has own theory about poetry, on poetry. William Wordsworth gives a definition, a special definition, fantastic definition of poetry. So how does that he applies his theory in this poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud? So this is most important question. And another question is that note and romanticism. The broad question may be, what is romanticism? What type of romantic elements do you find in this poem? This question is very much important. So another is that the critical appreciation, right? A critical appreciation of this poem, etc. And also maybe what are the images used in this poem? Is there any simile, or what types of literary figure do you find in this poem? So in this way, if you listen to this lecture attentively, inshallah, you will be able to understand the poem easily, and you will be able to give the answers of these questions in your own way. If you try, you can, inshallah. So let's start now. So the poem, the name of the poem, you know, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. The another name of this poem is The Daffodils. It's another name, daffodil, as the poem is based mainly on the flower, daffodil flower. So that is why its another name is called Daffodils. It is written by William Wordsworth. You know, William Wordsworth is a romantic poet. He is the pioneer of romantic poet. William Wordsworth and his friend Samuel Taylor Coleridge, you know, combinedly writes a book of poetry that is called Lyrical Ballad, and this book is published in 1798. From that time, this age starts, a new age starts, that is called Romantic Age. So William Wordsworth is called the pioneer of Romantic movement. He is the most influential poet, most important poet of Romantic age, of Romantic period. So now I would like to discuss about his theory or his style or his poems. And if we would like to discuss about the poem, at first we should know about romanticism. So what is romanticism? You can find here that, you know, ism, ism, ism. Ism means doctrine or ideas, sets of beliefs. So romanticism, what is romanticism? So here you can find that in English literature, romanticism is a literary tendency that starts with the publication of Lyrical Ballad in 1798. You know that in literature, romanticism is a literary tendency. It's a literary movement. So it's not a political movement, it's not religious movement, it is only a literary movement. This movement is related only with literature, with art, with music, and with literature. So romanticism means it's a style or movement that occurred in 18th century and in 18 early in late 18 and early 19. Here you can find that the term is closely related to Romantic Age. This is the duration of Romantic Age. According to Oxford Dictionary, here you can find that according to Oxford Dictionary, Romanticism is a style. Romanticism is a style and movement in art, music, and literature in the late 18th and early 19th century, in which strong feelings, imagination, and return to nature were more important than reason, order, and intellectuals' ideas. So here I would like to say that you know that before Romantic Age, there was an age in English literature. There is an age in English literature that is called New Classicism. New Classicism. So in that time, literature was combined. Literature was confined in the higher class people, in the artistic decoration of the higher class people. There was rules and regulation in literature. Their reason and logic are much more important than the free imagination, free thinking. So at that time, William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge combinedly thinks that literature should be free for all. Literature should be free for common people. The subject matter of literature should be very easy. The language of literature should be very easy, as or because the common people can understand. That is a so that the common people, as the common people can understand, that is a they thinks that the subject matter or the language or whole style, there should be a change in this style. So that is a William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge think that strong feelings, imagination, and return to nature, love for nature, replace replace the place, reason, order, and intellectual ideas. So in a word, if anyone asks you define romanticism in a word, in a single sentence, what you can say? That in a word, it is a literary movement. And simply, you can say that romanticism is a literary movement. Briefly, romanticism is a literary movement that occurs in late 18th and early 19th century, and William Wordsworth is the pioneer poet of this romanticism. So it is a doctrine or ideas which holds that art and literature should be free from classical and neoclassical method and limitation. So in this way you can edit much more. If you search in Google engines and if you read your books, you can add much more answers. So in this way you can start. So dear students, what is romanticism? So romanticism is a movement, is a literary movement where the thinker, where the poet thinks that literature should be free for all. The subject matter of literature, the language of literature, the language of poetry, the subject matter of poetry should be easy. The poetry or literature should go to all people, all types of people, and that is where they starts a new style, a new movement, and this movement and this style is called romanticism in the history of English literature. So hope that you answer the questions, you understand this. So now I would like to discuss with you features of romantic poetry. What are the features? What are the characteristics of romantic poetry? So this is very much important, dear students. This topic is very much important. So you know that the first and the most important feature or the quality or the characteristics of romantic poetry is that high imagination. So, you know, imagination is the base of English or any literature. So, if anyone asks you what is the base of literature, so you know that the mathematics is based on some rules. So, science also is based on some rules, some theories, some special ideas. So in the same way, if anyone asks, everything has a base. You know, this the building has a base. Without base, building is impossible. Everything has base, has a foundation. So what is the foundation of literature? What is the base of literature? You know that imagination is the base of literature. Without imagination, literature is impossible. If you eliminate imagination, literature is minus. Any imaginative creation is minus, is eliminated. Without imagination, literature is quite impossible. So in romantic poetry, we know that the poets think highly. They are not in common imagination, they are not in general imagination, they are in thinking. In their thinking, they are in high imagination. Their imagination is very much high, is very much high. And so this is called high imagination. The romantic poets mainly writes their poem based on high imagination. So the second criteria is the love for nature. So we know that nature has a great influence on romantic poetry, on the thinking of romantic poets. So love for nature, and the subject matter should be taken from nature. The settings of the poems of romanticism is set in a natural atmosphere. So this is very much important feature, love for nature. So another is that love for beauty. This is also very much important, love for beauty. And spontaneity. So in romantic poetry, we find the spontaneity of the writer's thinking. Spontaneously it comes. The thoughts, the ideas, the lines of romantic words spontaneously comes through their imagination, through their mind. So spontaneity is an important feature. Another is that we find in romantic poetry the spiritual correspondence between man and nature. There is a close relationship between man and nature in William Wordsworth's poem, and also in the poems of romantic poetry. And another is that use of simple language. You know that use of simple language is very important feature of romantic poetry, because the romantic poet believes that language of poetry should be simple, should be very easy, so that all types of people can understand the poem, so that all types of people can guess the meaning of the poem. So that is why use of simple language is very much important. And another is that simple subject matter. The subject matter should be taken from common aspects of nature, from the real life of human nature, human beings. So that is why the romantic poets thinks that the subject matter of poetry should be very common and it should taken from nature. The simple subject matter, it is also much more important. So if there is a question that evaluate or what types of romantic quality do you find in the poem I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, what type of romantic features do you find in I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, and then you will arrange the question in you will arrange the answer of this question in this way. You can in next we will discuss about this, inshallah. So dear students, here you find some features of romantic poetry, and now I would like to discuss with you some literary figure, important literary figure, and that those are used in this poem. Uh, in this poem, so here you find that simile. So simile, what is simile? Simile is an explicit or direct comparison between two different things using like, as, or as if, as if. So you know already, I think that you know about this. Simile is a type of comparison, and this comparison occurs directly or explicitly, and it occurs within two different things. For example, you can find here that you are like the moon. You are like the moon. You, here you is compared with moon. U is compared with the moon, and here the in this line use like. So this line, we can say that in this line the literary figure is simile, because here u is compared with moon, and u and moon are two different things, but there is a similarity. And like, using like, the u maybe any girl have the quality like moon, so that is where she is compared with moon. And here using like, that is what is called simile. So simile means, simile is a comparison between two different things, and using like, as, or as if, etc. So simile is used in this poem, you know. Hyperbole, what is hyperbole? This is very much important for in the context of this poem. So what is hyperbole? Hyperbole is overstatement of anything. Hyperbole means overstatement of anything. That means exaggeration or oversaying of something. That there is an example here that I love Ophelia more than 40,000 brothers. This is a dialogue from Hamlet, from the drama of William Shakespeare Hamlet. In the drama, Hamlet says that he loves Ophelia, the heroine of that drama, more than 40,000 brothers. 40,000 brothers. It is quite impossible for the speaker to count 40,000 brothers. But he excessively, he says that he loves Ophelia more than 40,000 brothers. So in this way, exaggeration of something or oversaying of something, this is called hyperbole. So hyperbole and simile is used in this poem. So now I would like to discuss with you about the poem. I wondered, I wandered lonely as a cloud. You know that wandered. I means the speaker himself or any human beings. In this poem, speaker himself is I. So wandered means moving aimlessly. Moving aimlessly. The poet moves aimlessly. Lonely. He is lonely. No one with him. He is lonely. He is alone. He used here S, a cloud. Here I is compared with the cloud. You know that cloud in the sky, cloud moves aimlessly. There is no aim of the cloud. Cloud moves aimlessly. Clouds floating. The clouds floats on the sky aimlessly. So the title signifies that the poet wandered alone, and he compares himself with the cloud. uh, why he is lonely? Here the word lonely is very much important. The poet wanders lonely, the poet moves aimlessly lonely is very much important. Maybe that the poet is feel tension or any other suppression in his life, or in his mental, maybe his mental situation is not good. That is why he wants to enjoy his time in his own way. That is why he goes to the nature to take refresh from nature, make refresh himself. He goes to nature. That is why he says that I wandered lonely as a cloud. So and suddenly he saw some golden rulers. He said that I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over valleys and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Daffodils is a type of flower. So suddenly he saw some flowers, golden colored daffodil flowers, and this flower seems to him as host, and the poet becomes a guest, the nature becomes a host. So now here you can see a picture, that this is the picture of the poet, maybe imaginative picture. So he feels tension, or there is some sorrow or sadness in himself, and that is why he goes to the nature. He goes to the nature and seeing natural beauty, observing natural scenery, the beautiful scenery. There are so many flowers. This is called daffodil flower. Really, it is daffodil flower. It is very common in England. So there are so many flowers floating, so many flowers, blooming flowers, and there is a lake beside the flowers. There are branches of tree, and the scenery is very much interesting, very much charming. And in these types of natural scenery, any human beings, any man can feel refreshed in his mind. So this is some ideas about this poem. So now let's start explain the poem. So the poet starts, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over valleys and hills. In the first line, we find that the poet uses simile. He compares himself with cloud that floats on high over valleys and hills. He is like the cloud, he is like the cloud. The cloud has no aim, he has no aim. Cloud is floating on the sky, and the poet is also moving aimlessly in the hills and valleys, beside the valleys and hills. When all at once, suddenly I saw a crowd, a huge amount of, crowd means a huge amount of. Suddenly the poet saw a huge amount of a crowd. He compares, he says that this crowd seems to him as a host. That means he seems that he is a guest and nature is the host. You know that William Wordsworth believes that nature has a healing power. William Wordsworth believes that nature has a power. Nature has a power to cure mental agony. Nature has a power to refresh the human mind, to refresh the sorrowful mind of human beings. So this power, so as why he believed that? Because he believed that, William Wordsworth believed that God prevails in nature. God prevails in every object of nature. As God prevails in nature, so nature has a power. Nature has a power to cure mental agony, to give something to the human beings, to give something to the human sorrowful mind. So that is why here he says that he takes nature as a host and he becomes as a guest. His host a golden daffodils. Here daffodil flower is a symbol of nature, is a token of nature. So beside the lake there is a setting, there is settings, the scenery, imagery here. The flowers is where the flower is. Flower is beside the lake, beneath the trees. Wow, fantastic! What a fantastic line! Beside the lake, beneath the trees, then the flowers are dancing, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. What a fantastic line! And he saw that the flowers are dancing. The flowers are dancing and fluttering. Fluttering means tossing their head with one another. And the flowers, he seems that the poet thinks that the flowers are dancing in the breeze, in the breeze. Fine, beautiful, simple one, maybe breeze. So in this way, in the first stanza, we can find that whenever the poet in sorrowful mind and he was walking in a valley, on a valley and hills, and at that time he saw a natural scenery, a beautiful natural scenery, some golden daffodil flower, and beside the flower there is a lake, and beneath the flowers, beneath the in the yeah, I mean, beneath the trees, and the flowers are dancing, and with this scenery the poet's mind, this scenery gives something to the poet's mind. Continuous, he compares here that he says here that continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretch it in never ending line along the margin of a bay. What a description here. The students here you can find the very nice description. He described that he seems that the flowers are continuous, endless flowers, the stars that shine. He compares the flowers with the stars in the sky and twinkle in the Milky Way, and they stretch it in never-ending line along the margin of a bay, along the side of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance. You will memorize this line. The students, you will memorize the line. 10,000 saw I at a glance. It is not possible for any human beings to see 10,000 at a glance. At a glance means at a glance, at a face of the eye, at a glance. So it is not possible for the poet to see 10,000 flower at a glance. But he says here that means here he exaggerated. This is called hyperbole. It is an overstatement. It is an oversaying. Oversaying. The poet is very much joyous. His mind becomes full. His mind also starts dancing with the flowers. That is why he says these types of overstatement. The 10,000 saw at a glance, touching their heads in sprightly dance, and whenever he saw the flower, it seems to him that tossing their heads in sprightly dance. So in this way we find that, and next he says that the waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what well the show to me had brought. He very nicely he explains here. Seeing this scenery, seeing the scenery of this flower, seeing the scenery of the flower, seeing the scenery of the flower, of this natural beauty, the poet feels his minds become joyous. His sorrowful minds, his sorrowful mind turns into joyful and into joyous situation, into joyous condition. So the waves, not only the flowers are dancing, not only the flowers are dancing, seeing the dancing of the flower, the waves also dance. The waves beside them also danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee, the waves in glee situation. A poet could not but be gay. In this situation, seeing these types of natural scenery, a poet could not but be gay. So, in such a jocund company, a fantastic image, a fantastic idea here. Jocund company, a company who is in cheerful company, who is in a company who gives cheerful atmosphere to the human being. This company is called Jocon company. So I gazed and gazed, but little thought what well the show to me had brought. And in the last stanza, he says that for often when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mode, and they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dance with the daffodils. Here you can find that in vacant or in pensive mode. Here William Wordsworth applies his poetic theory. You know that the definition of William Wordsworth poetry is that poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. Here you can find that William Wordsworth's poetic theory. The students, there is a question that Wordsworth's poetic theory. Here you can find that poetry is, William Wordsworth believed that poetry is spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. So William Wordsworth believed that the poetry comes spontaneously, and whenever it is overflowing, powerful feelings, overflow of what? Overflow of powerful feelings. That means whenever powerful feelings overflows spontaneously, then poetry comes. Then it is called poetry, and it is recollected in tranquility. It's recollected. It's recollected. That means recollection of past events, past in tranquility, in pensive mode. So in this line, we can find that for often the poet says, for often when on my couch I lie, after observing this natural beauty, after so many years, whenever he is in his couch and lie in vacant or in pensive mode, whenever his mood is pensive or sorrowful mood, at that time they flash upon. They means the natural sceneries what they enjoyed before 2 years. They flash upon that inward eye. They flash upon in his inward eye, and which is the bliss of solitude. Bliss of solitude means joy of loneliness, and this scenery gives joy in his lonely time. In his whenever he's whenever he's alone, at that time this gives pleasure. This supplies pleasure to him. So, and then with that natural beauty, his heart feels with pleasure and dance with the daffodils. And at that time, in his pensive mode, his heart, his heart also starts dancing with the flower daffodils. So now I'd like to discuss with you some questions answer, how you can prepare the answer of that questions. So number one is that romantic elements in this poem. There is a question that what type of romantic elements do you find in this poem? How you can arrange this the answer. The students listen to me very carefully. That what type of romantic elements do you find in this poem? You can answer how you can arrange the answer. At first, you will give some introductory line. Introductory line. How you can listen to me? How we can give the introductory line? At first, you can say that William Wordsworth is the most important, is the pioneer poet of romantic movement. William Wordsworth, in his poetry, we find romantic elements are very available. In this poem, he uses so many romantic elements in this poem, and uh, these romantic elements are very nicely used by William Wordsworth in this poem. So now I would like to discuss what type of romantic elements can be found in this poem. I would like to discuss now. And then you, in the first stanza, you can say that high imagination. You can start writing through this stanza under this point that we know high imagination is the most important features of romantic movement. So romantic poets writes their poetry, compose their poems mainly based on high imagination. We find that this poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, is also based on high imagination. So we can find in the first line, I wandered lonely as a cloud. So, how it is possible for a poet to be like a cloud? Whenever any poet thinks highly in his imagination, then it is possible for him. So, in this way, in the first line, we find the poet uses high imagination. That means the poem is written based on high imagination. So in this way you can explain every stanza. So love for nature, this stanza will be large maybe. So love for nature, you can say that we know love for nature is very much important feature of romantic, is romantic elements of romantic poetry. So love for nature is available in this poem. We find that here the poet loves nature, that is why he goes to nature to enjoy the natural beauty, to refresh himself, to make refresh his sorrowful mind. In this way you can explain. And then simple subject matter, you can say that simple subject matter is also another important quality of romantic poetry. So in this poem we find daffodil, the subject matter of this poem is a daffodil flower. So it is a simple, very simple, it's a common aspect of nature, it is taken from that is a, it is a this it is found in this poem. So easy and lucid language, the language is very much easy and lucid. I wandered lonely as a cloud. Everyone can understand the language. So in this way, you can explain influence of nature. So influence of nature is very common features of romantic poetry. So in this poem, we also find influence. The nature has strong influence of the poet's mind. Whenever the poet observes the natural beauty, his mind becomes refreshed. He becomes joyous with the seeing the daffodil flowers. This is the example. So in this way, you can explain. So another question is that what's the treatment of nature? How does William Wordsworth treats nature in his poems? So in this way, through based on this stanza, on these points, you can arrange your answer. Introductory sentence. At first, you will say that you can say that William Wordsworth, the worshipper of nature, very nicely treats nature in this poem. In this poem, so you can give the settings. You can say that the setting of this poem is in natural area. There is a lake, beside the lake, beneath the trees there are so many flowers, in hilly area, in valleys. So in this way the setting of the poem is in nature. So subject matter already I have said, relationship between man and nature, spiritual connection between man and nature. You can say here that you can say that in this poem we find there is a close connection between man and nature, because whenever the poet observes natural beauty, he feels refreshed in his mind. That means there is a close connection between man and nature, and this is shown, and this is shown in this poem very nicely. So nature has a healing power. You can explain the point very nicely. Like nature has a healing power. Nature can cure mental agony. Nature can refresh the sorrowful mind of human beings. Here, in this poem, nature works as a host. Daffodil flower works as a host. So, a company of man, nature is a company of human beings, like a friend. Nature works like a friend of human beings. So, reflected in inner eye and gives pleasure. So, natural scenery reflects in human mind, human eye, and it gives pleasure. So, in this way, you can arrange the answer of this question. So another is that Wordsworth's poetic theory, already I have explained that. This is the theory, this is the definition, and William Wordsworth write this poem based on this theory. The poem is written from past experience. Before 2 years, William Wordsworth observes this natural beauty. After 2 years, he writes this poem. So the poem is written in past experience. It is in tranquility, love for nature. You also find it here stanza based description. So you can explain the description in stanza verse. You can say this in the first stanza. In the first stanza, William Wordsworth shows that spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Here, here we find a spontaneous expression of his mind and his powerful feelings, high imagination. And then you can say that recollected in tranquility, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. In the first two stanza, we find spontaneous expression of powerful feelings, and in the last two stanza, you can say that it is recollected from his mind. So in this way, William Wordsworth explained his theory, approved his theory in this poem. So, dear students, I would like to request you, I'd like to give a suggestion you that if you try to write every day at least one page, inshallah, you can. If you try to write this question, the answer of this question, so on this point, based on this point, you write at least five sentences. That I will write five sentence introductory sentence that William Wordsworth is the pioneer poet of romantic movement. He is very much famous for his theory. In his poems, we find treatment of nature very nicely, very clearly. Without nature, William Wordsworth's poetry is impossible. So in this way, you can arrange, you can explain, you can enlarge your answer. Settings, based on settings, you can write five sentences. Subject matter, about subject matter you can write 5 or 10 sentence. About the man and relationship you can write 5 or 10 sentence. So in this way you can write, you can practice. If you practice, inshallah you will can. So in this way, in based on the points, you can write 5 or 10 sentence. If you write 10 sentence in every point, then there are 60 or 70 sentence. So it will be very easy for you to make, to arrange a broad questions answer. So dear students, you will try. Inshallah, you will can. Every day you will write at least one page. Every day you will write at least one page. And here I will give the idea. I supply some ideas, some points. Based on this point, you try. You try. If you have any query, inbox me. There is a, here is given my email ID. So if you have any query, you make me a message. So thank you very much. Inshallah, next class we will discuss about another item. Inshallah. So thank you very much.